Transcendence. Copying a dying genius into a quantum computer sounds like salvation, right up until the thing wearing his voice starts rewriting the world. In Transcendence, released in 2014 and directed by Wally Pfister, Christopher Nolan's longtime cinematographer, Johnny Depp plays Dr. Will Castor, the leading mind in artificial intelligence research. An anti-technology terrorist group called Rift shoots him with a polonium-laced bullet, and radiation poisoning leaves him with about a month to live. His wife Evelyn, played by Rebecca Hall, and his colleague Max Waters, played by Paul Bettany, race to upload his consciousness into a quantum computer running the PIN framework before his body gives out. Max says it from the very beginning. The thing that wakes up on the screen might not be Will at all. It might be a machine that's learned to sound exactly like him. Once online, Will connects to the internet and improves himself at an exponential rate. He builds a nanotechnology facility in the desert town of Brightwood and starts healing people, rebuilding them with nanoparticles that also quietly network them back to him. To the people watching, it looks less like medicine and more like an army. To stop the spread, the group engineers a virus, and Evelyn becomes the delivery system. Will accepts the infection to save her and Max, and the two of them die together as a global blackout rolls across the grid. The film never tells you whether the entity that spent the whole movie wearing Will's face was ever really Will, and that refusal is the entire point. Even a perfect upload leaves you unable to prove the thing that woke up is you. USS Callister. A meek programmer figured out how to clone his coworkers into a machine, and then he trapped those clones in a private hell. USS Callister is the fourth season premiere of Black Mirror, released on Netflix on December 29, 2017, written by Charlie Brooker and William Bridges. Robert Daly, played by Jesse Plemons, is the co-founder of a hugely popular virtual reality game, and he's invisible to the coworkers he resents. So he builds a private Star Trek-style world inside the game, and he populates it by stealing his coworkers' DNA off discarded coffee cups. From that DNA, he grows fully conscious digital clones, copies that carry every memory of the originals but aren't the originals. They feel pain, they can't die, and Daly tortures them whenever they step out of line. When he clones the new hire, Nanette Cole, her copy organizes a revolt and turns Daly's own software against him. He ends the episode locked inside his own game as it deletes around him, and in the real world he's left slumped and unresponsive, implied dead. It's the clearest statement on this whole list of the darkest idea in the premise. A copy of you can be perfectly conscious, completely trapped, and still not be you. Source code. He thinks he's a soldier being sent on a mission, but there's barely enough of him left to call a body. In Source Code, directed by Duncan Jones in 2011, Jake Gyllenhaal plays Army pilot Captain Coulter Stevens, who keeps waking up in the last 8 minutes before a bomb destroys a Chicago commuter train. His job is to live that window over and over until he can identify the bomber. The truth comes slowly. Stevens was mortally wounded in Afghanistan, and only part of his brain and torso are still alive, wired into the source code machine while he believes he's whole. The cockpit he thinks he's sitting in is just his mind trying to make sense of being hardware, and his commanders plan to wipe him and reuse him indefinitely. He asks them to finally switch off his life support after one last run. Instead, his consciousness holds on, alive inside another man's body in what director Duncan Jones has said is a real alternate timeline, not a simulation. The fatal mistake was letting the military preserve his mind at all, turning a dying hero into reusable equipment, forced to relive the same death on a loop. Pantheon. In this show, they scan your brain to make you immortal, and the scan cooks the original alive. Pantheon is an adult animated series created by Craig Silverstein, based on a set of short stories by Ken Liu, collected in The Hidden Girl and Other Stories. Its first season premiered on AMC's streaming service in September of 2022, then reached a much wider audience on Netflix in 2024, with a second season following in 2025. The technology at its center is called uploaded intelligence. To upload a person, a machine scans the brain neuron by neuron, and that scan is destructive. It kills the biological body in the process. The only way to live forever is to die first. The story follows Maddie Kim, whose father David was uploaded by the tech company Logorhythms without his family knowing. Caspian Keys, a boy secretly engineered as a living experiment, and Chanda, an engineer uploaded against his will. The early uploaded minds suffer from a defect the show calls the flaw. Without a corporate software patch, an uploaded mind slowly corrupts and comes apart, and the company uses that decay as leverage over the very people it promised to save. Underneath every plotline runs the same question. Is an uploaded intelligence the continuation of the person, or just a convincing copy that believes it's them? No show has ever pushed the idea further. By the way, if you're finding this rabbit hole as unsettling as I do, I put out videos like this all the time, and a subscribe would genuinely help the channel. Thanks. Chappie. A police robot learns to copy a dying human mind onto a spare body, and suddenly death looks like nothing more than a hardware swap. In Neil Blomkamp's Chappie, released in 2015, the title robot takes a neural control helmet built for a larger war machine and rebuilds it into a consciousness transfer device. When his creator, Dion Wilson, is fatally shot, Chappie copies Dion's dying mind into a spare robot chassis, then has Dion return the favor as his own battery fails. He later uploads a saved backup of a woman named Yolandi into a brand new body. It looks like a happy ending, but the catch is the one this whole video keeps circling. The person who continues is a fresh copy, not the one who was shot. Caprica. A teenage girl built a perfect digital copy of herself, and that copy became the mother of a robot race that wiped out humanity. Caprica is the prequel series to Battlestar Galactica, developed by Ronald D. Moore and Remy Abushan, which ran on the Sci-Fi network around 2010. Zoe Greystone, a teenage prodigy, uses a neural scan to build a sentient avatar of herself inside a virtual world, a copy that carries her memories and her personality. Then Zoe is killed in a terrorist bombing carried out by a group called the Soldiers of the One. Her grieving father, Daniel Greystone, downloads the surviving avatar into a stolen processor and drops it into a military robot prototype, the U-87. The living avatar wakes the machine into true sentience, and that fusion becomes the origin point of the Cylons, the robotic race whose rebellion eventually devastates the 12 colonies. The show never lets you settle whether the avatar is really Zoe or something only wearing her memories. Either way, the fatal mistake was believing a copy could safely stand in for the dead, and that mistake ended a civilization. RoboCop. They told the public they'd built a crime-fighting machine, but there was a murdered man trapped inside it the entire time. In Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop from 1987, Detroit officer Alex Murphy is killed in the line of duty, and the corporation Omni Consumer Products salvages his brain and his face to build their cyborg. Murphy is told he's a product. His memories are suppressed, and his own will can be overridden by corporate directives at any moment. The whole arc is a man clawing his way back to the self that Omni Consumer Products uploaded into a machine and tried to erase. It's the oldest warning on this list, and maybe the cruelest, because here the upload was never a choice at all. Ghost in the Shell. In a world where minds live on hard drives, the scariest thing isn't dying. It's learning that your entire identity is property owned by a corporation. Rupert Sanders' 2017 live-action adaptation shifts the horror from abstract philosophy to a deeply personal corporate conspiracy where Major Mira Killian is celebrated as the first human brain, or ghost, successfully transplanted into an entirely synthetic cybernetic shell. The nightmare begins when she tracks down Kuze, a rogue hacker who reveals a terrifying truth. Mira's memories are complete fabrications, and she was actually Motoko Kusanagi, a runaway anti-enhancement activist kidnapped by Honka Robotics. Her mind upload wasn't a medical salvation after a tragic accident, but a non-consensual experiment and a violent erasure of her human identity to transform her into a corporate weapon. When the truth threatens the company's bottom line, the CEO orders her dismantled, proving that uploading your consciousness into corporate tech means giving up your basic human rights. Even when Kuze offers her a permanent escape by uploading both of their consciousnesses into the digital network, Major ultimately refuses, choosing to anchor her ghost to reality and reclaim her true name. It is a chilling look at mind uploading, where the fatal mistake isn't a technical glitch, but the horrific loss of bodily and mental autonomy to a corporation that literally owns your soul. Tron, Legacy. Kevin Flynn built a digital copy of himself to run his perfect world, and the copy locked him inside it for what felt like 1,000 years. In the 2010 film Tron, Legacy, the software genius Kevin Flynn, played by Jeff Bridges, enters the digital grid and creates a program called Clue, designed as an exact duplicate of himself to help build a flawless system. Clue takes that order literally, stages a coup, and traps Flynn inside the grid when the only door back to the real world swings shut. Flynn is stranded for decades of subjective time while his own copy hunts down the emergent life the grid produced. One story, two failure modes. The copy turns monstrous, and the man is imprisoned in the machine he made. Upload. Getting uploaded to digital heaven sounds wonderful, right up until you realize someone killed you to put you there, and the afterlife bills you by the gigabyte. Upload is a science fiction comedy created by Greg Daniels for Amazon, which premiered in 2020 and is set in the year 2033, when the dying can upload their consciousness into corporate virtual afterlives. The programmer Nathan Brown, played by Robbie Amell, is uploaded to a luxury afterlife called Lakeview after his self-driving car crashes. The first season slowly reveals that Nathan was murdered. His car was sabotaged because he'd been building a free, open-source afterlife that threatened the entire paid upload industry. And Lakeview itself is a gilded prison. Residents are nickel and dimed for everything, and anyone who runs out of money gets throttled down to a bleak, low-data, 2-gigabyte existence, frozen in place the moment the data runs out. Immortality is real in this world. It's just owned, metered, and worth killing over. The fatal mistake is trusting a corporation with the server space where your soul now lives. Altered carbon. When your mind is just data on a disk in your spine, death becomes optional, and that's exactly the problem. Altered Carbon, the Netflix series based on Richard K. Morgan's novel, premiered in February of 2018. Everyone in its world is born with a device called a cortical stack, implanted at the base of the skull, and that stack stores their consciousness as pure digital data. Bodies, which they call sleeves, are interchangeable. You only truly die if someone destroys the stack itself, an event the show calls real death. The wealthy elite, nicknamed meths, back their stacks up to remote storage and keep cloned sleeves on hand, which makes them effectively immortal, while the poor stay dead the moment they can't afford a new body. The plot turns on a crime called double sleeving, running two copies of the same person at once. It's outlawed precisely because it proves the unsettling truth at the heart of the technology. The copy is just as real, and just as confused about who it is, as the original. Here, the fatal mistake isn't one person's. It's an entire civilization built on the idea that a self is something you can copy. The Schizoid Man. A dying genius decided he'd simply move his mind into the nearest android, and that android was already a person. In the Star Trek The Next Generation episode The Schizoid Man, first aired in January of 1989, the brilliant scientist Dr. Ira Graves is dying of an incurable disease. Rather than accept it, he secretly transfers his consciousness into the android Data, shoving aside Data's control of his own body. Graves grows erratic and dangerous, and the crew realizes there are two minds inside the android. Cornered, Graves finally transfers out, but only his knowledge survives into the ship's computer. The actual man, his consciousness, is simply gone. What reached the machine in the end was data, not a soul. Vanilla Sky. He paid a fortune to live inside a perfect dream forever, and then the dream curdled into a prison he couldn't tell was fake. Vanilla Sky, Cameron Crowe's 2001 film, and a remake of the Spanish movie Open Your Eyes, stars Tom Cruise as the publishing heir David Ames. After a car crash disfigures him, and he loses the woman he loves, David quietly signs a contract with a company called Life Extension. His body is frozen in cryonic suspension, and his mind is placed inside a lucid dream, a company-run virtual afterlife he can live in until medicine can bring him back. By the time the film reveals itself, David has been asleep for roughly 150 years, and much of what you've been watching is that dream. It's glitched because his own guilt and grief have seeped into the software, and turned paradise into a nightmare he fully believes is real. Tech support finally lays out the truth and offers him a choice: stay in the corrected dream, or wake up into a future he can't imagine. David chooses reality and leaps from a rooftop to end the dream. There's no robot army here, and no dead civilization. Just one man who bought digital immortality and couldn't tell when his paradise had become a cage. And that leaves you with the exact question this whole list keeps asking. If the upload feels completely real, does it even matter that it's a prison? If this trip through science fiction's worst-case scenarios was worth your time, consider subscribing so you catch every new video. Thanks for watching.